So welcome to the entertainment industry panel. You guys excited to be here? Good energy. We have some amazing people here to share their knowledge with you. Our first panelist is Rick Delgado. He has a career spanning film, TV, and commercials. He's been working as a gaffer. Should I be using the mic? Yeah. Yes. You think I worked in film and TV? Okay. I'll start again, take two. Okay, Rick Delgado has a career spanning film, TV, and commercials. He's been working as a gaffer, a best boy, and lighting technician since the 1980s on such recognizable projects as Iron Man, True Blood, The Last Samurai, which my son just watched like last night, by the way. I didn't realize it was rated R. It's okay, he's 13. It's all right. The Princess Diaries, Charlie's Angels, Waterworld, Dirty Dancing, Planet of the Apes, Superior Donuts, and 9JKL, which, by the way, we went on field trip to 9JKL, so that was cool, sitcom. And he graduated from Loyola Marymount. Give it up for Rick Delgado. Next is Craig Kotala, has been working as a motion picture studio grip, local number 80, for more than 40 years and 80,000 hours in cinema. Some of his many credits include Spider-Man, Terminator 3, Man of Steel, Oblivion, Captain America: Civil War, Fast and Furious, The Muppets, and Transformers: Age of Extinction. Have you heard of any of those? Maybe? Maybe a couple. If you didn't grab a handout, you can see the job description of GRIP up on the table, and let's welcome Craig Kotala. Next is Deborah Lazzarini, Vice President of the Character Shop, with 30-plus years of production experience in films, television, and commercials. She's an award-winning short filmmaker, has directed educational films, and edited critically acclaimed features. Her current areas of expertise range from production management and logistics, on-set work as a tech and SAG puppeteer, and running a special effects and animatronics company. Her future promises new opportunities in her current position, as well as voiceover work and acting. She holds degrees, another Loyola Marymount University grad in Communication Arts and English. Welcome, Deborah Lazzarini. Rick Lazzarini. Any relation? Yes. Not your brother. Husband and wife. Rick Lazzarini is president of the Character Shop, where he makes characters, creatures, animals, robots, and crazy things come to life using the technologies of puppetry and animatronics. He has worked on many recognizable commercials in iconic Hollywood films and for directors such as Steven Spielberg, Mel Brooks, Jim Cameron, Guillermo del Toro. And Rick has earned a solid reputation as an innovative designer and inventor in the field of animatronic effects, with a career spanning more than 3 decades. He's known for inventing groundbreaking techniques and mastering many styles and genres. His work has been featured in such popular films as Aliens, Spaceballs, Mimic, Hook, The Santa Claus, Ghostbusters 2 and 2016, Hocus Pocus, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and 5, and The Sandlot. Oh, love that one. As well as cult classics like Dude, Where's My Car? And Snakes on a Plane, and many more. In addition to heading the Character Shop, Rick is the lead professor at the Animatronics Institute, teaching others the secrets of animatronics. His acting roles include clueless bearded dude in War Dogs and Ape on Horseback, and of course, Pizza the Hut in Spaceballs. Yes, he was Pizza the Hut. Welcome, Rick Lazzarini. Mariano Rosón, did I say it right? Yeah. Oh, good. Mariano was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and grew up in a time when making movies was almost a crime in that country. He started producing FM radio shows at the age of 20, and when the country's ideology changed, he moved to study film production with the First Universidad de Buenos Aires alumni group. While studying, he started working as a TV producer and then moved to the US to open his own production company for Hispanic markets. He started a production design system to make movies within a budget without losing any of the drama. His success continues as a writer, producer, and director for TV networks including Cine Latino, Telemundo, Univision, and now the Spanish language versions of National Geographic and Sony Television. Please welcome Mariano Rosón. Watch this. Lauren Snowden wrote and directed her first TV pilot turned web series in 2013, The Reason. Is that how you say it? Okay. The Reason, which premiered in Tribeca as a finalist at the 2014 New York Television Festival. In spring 2016, her short psychological thriller titled Prodigal aired on CBS via the African American Short Film Showcase. She is currently developing 2 new series and most recently was hired to write an original mystery feature for Hallmark Movies and Mysteries Network. Congratulations. Which will air this summer. In addition to her narrative work, Lauren has also been gaining ground as a director, producing and directing scripted projects, as well as branded content pieces for both up-and-coming and established companies. She also had the privilege of directing several commercial and promo spots for the West Edge Design Fair in 2015. And you may recognize her as a film studies part-time professor here on campus. Welcome, Lauren Snowden. Thank you all for being here today. We really appreciate it. Let's give them one more thank you. Applause. So I'm going to start off with some kind of introductory questions. Rick, why don't you start, if you don't mind? Please tell us how you got your first job in the industry and how you've moved up through the ranks to your current position.
The first job I got it through a friend. That I met in film school. And of course, you know, we all were looking towards getting in the same industry, same field, and you know, one of us would get an internship somewhere or start working for a production company somewhere else. And if we'd hear of something, we would share what we knew, you know, because we wanted to get our friends sort of in the door, just like we would hope they would do for us. And that's pretty much how that worked, getting in. I got on a small production. I started meeting the crew. I was interested in getting into lighting and being on lighting crew. And so, you know, you talk to these people. It's like my first chance at meeting professionals. And, you know, here's my phone number. If you need another thing, give me a call, you know. I'm cheap or free or whatever what took at the time to get, you know, my foot in the door at that time. And as my career went on, you know, getting to where I am now is sort of an up and down thing. There's different types of productions, you know, maybe there are lower budget productions that they don't have a lot of money for crew people, so they're willing to get people that are just eager or, you know, just want that position, and the price is right, so you can get that position. So you can be, you know, top of the lighting department pretty quick if it's a low budget production. But if it's like a higher budget production, of course, they want someone with more experience and know-how, or maybe someone that the cameraman's worked with before, and they're a lot more picky. So that to get to that level takes a lot more years of experience and more of that kind of networking on the job. Throughout the job, you know, and it just sort of evolves as you're doing that type of work. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
That's perfect.
So I've been up here on the ladder, and I'm currently down here right now.
And that happens, and you'll go back up again, and it goes all over the place.
Yes, it does.
And so networking, meeting people who you're in school with, look who's next to you, help each other out. And then more networking.
Yes, it never stops.
And yeah.
In this field, at least for me, that networking and keeping in touch with the people that you work with and potentially can hire you, that never ends.
Fantastic, thank you. All right, Craig, you want to answer that question? How you got your first job and you got promoted?
It was out of the normal. I graduated locally with a business management degree, and my father got tired of me hanging around the house. So he leaned over the fence, and my neighbor was actually a director, and he directed some old TV series, and actually asked him, hey, can you take him over to the studio and get him a job? So he did, and we walked into a soundstage over at Universal Studios, and this is back, what, 1970s, and showed me a stage where these guys were up in the catwalks way up on top of a soundstage, and they were doing stuff, and he didn't take me into a stage that they were actually filming. Otherwise, I'd probably been a cameraman or something, but as it was just a bunch of grips working up there, and I decided, this is just gonna be a summertime job for me. I don't care what it is I do, I'll do whatever they are, and he goes, well, they're grips. So I started into it, and I can look back now, say 40 years from now, and the aspect of my job has changed dramatically. There's just so many things that I can do as a grip that I'm actually in almost every department that there is, and the same with Rick here. He gets involved with everybody. There isn't a department that we don't talk to, choreograph our work between grips and electrics and set design and putting up lighting, and certain things have to happen a certain way in order to actually light a set and build a set. So you integrate with everybody. You do become one big family and work out all the issues that it takes to get that picture made. But anyway, that's how I got started, and I'm 40 years into it, and thinking of retiring, thinking about it. My wife's saying I am, but I'm not sure. It was an unusual way to start. I think that the best thing, the advice that you could get would be to be persistent. Pick something that you like and go for it. And if there's opportunity knocks, take it. Don't back away from it, just do it. As I went through the years and people would ask me to do something unusual, you got to work in this kind of environment or that kind of environment, I would always say yes. I would always be the guy. I wanted to do it. And I'm never really out of work. I mean, I get calls all the time to go to work, here, there, whatever, and it doesn't matter, and I always say yes. I try to say yes. If I'm busy on a project, I say I'm on a project, call me later, thank you, whatever. But you always never really try and turn anything down. Always try and, push yourself forward, do whatever it is. Get into the industry, and doors open. You see, people doing something else that you might like to do early on. I just started gripping, and I loved it. There was never really a second choice for me. It was just what I wanted to do. Excuse me. But anyway, that's my advice, and that's how I got started. It was unusual, but 40 years later, I don't regret a minute of it.
Great. Thank you. Deborah, how did you get your start?
My first job, professional in this business, I answered an ad in the Hollywood Reporter. And I don't think they put ads in the Hollywood Reporter anymore for jobs, but it was to be a production coordinator on a Disney Channel show called You and Me Kid. And I went for an interview, and I interviewed with the production manager, who was very detail and business oriented. And I'd been working since I was 14. I worked all through high school. And I had a background in some accounting, and I could do 10 key by touch. That's a calculator, and that was important to do 10 key by touch. Also, like, typing is very important in the production office end of the business. So she hired me on that, and I was the production coordinator. And then I worked on that show for a couple years, and the production company that was producing that show did other things. So then I stayed with that production company, and then I was the production manager on one job, and then I was the assistant director, and then I was the director, and then I was the editor. So I stayed with one company that was a pretty small company, and they relied on me a lot. So I said yes to every challenge, even if I had lots of doubts. And once I finished editing and directing educational films, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going anywhere else in this company. And my husband Rick was in England on Aliens, and so I went and joined him and played around in England. And by the time we left, I had $800 to my name and no job. And a friend who knew me from You and Me Kid, this Disney Channel show, called me and asked if I would be interested in apprentice editing on a feature film, for a director that I just so respected him. Didn't know him at all personally, but this contact was from the production company, so instantly I said yes. And that meant I went on location in South Carolina and Georgia. And after a couple weeks on that job, the show went union. So I was automatically in the Editors Guild, and my salary jumped like 3 times, tripled. On that, with those people, that crew working for this director, I started as the apprentice editor. The director asked, would I like to be the music editor? I said, sure. And then as we're in the mixing studio, the end stages of that feature, he asked me if I would like to co-edit his next feature. Inside, I am screaming, I don't know what the hell, oops, I don't know how to do this. So of
You
course,
can say hell.
I said, yes! And so went to Montreal on location, co-edited The Moderns by Alan Rudolph, which is a beautiful film, you should look it up. And when I got back, someone who, I don't know how they found me, they asked would I like to edit another feature film? And it was not from any contact. So they said, should I talk to your agent or negotiate with you? Well, I had a set price in my head as far as what I would charge. So when they said, should I talk to your agent, I tripled that. And I said, no, you can talk to me. So I did that, and that was exciting. Editing was one of my favorite jobs. And then we decided to have a family. And Rick is a very unique genius, you will soon find out. And we decided that both of us, if we're going to have a family, don't want to have this job that takes us into 7 days a week, 16-hour days. One of us would. So I chose to be a stay-at-home mom until my kids were just a little bit older, and then I went to work for him at the character shop, and I do production management, coordination, budgeting, run the business, hire people, let go of people, support the company, kind of what I did in the very beginning. And yeah. So that's that.
Fantastic. I'm detecting a theme here where everybody's saying yes when people are getting offered gigs.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, I'll
Absolutely.
take it. Yes, I'm in.
The minute you say no, huge chance they will never call you again.
Yeah, because they'll find somebody else,
Yep.
and that person will get called again.
And people call me a lot at the character shop looking for work. And then I say, okay, I'll put you on the availability list. So then when I have something available, if I call them and they're not available, I'll call them maybe one more time, and then it's kind of a waste of my time. So always say yes. What's the worst that could happen? You'll get fired. That's not so bad. You can get another job.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Rick, tell us about your unique genius.
And how did I get my first start?
Oh, just a moment. There's lots of seats down here if you guys want to come down and sit down so you're not uncomfortable. You're welcome to come sit down. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Tell us about your start.
All right, my start. I started as a kid. I was very creative. I was always making sculptures and drawings, always creating something. And I was a big monster movie fan. Frankenstein, Dracula, King Kong, all the original horror films. If I saw that there was a horror film on TV, I'd watch it. And I was super into apes. I wanted a chimpanzee as a pet, and my parents wouldn't let me have a chimpanzee as a pet.
Why not?
You know, that's so abusive, and I thought of calling Child Protective Services, but chimps do tend to tear your face off and your limbs since they're 7 times stronger than a
Oh.
person.
That's a
So-
drawback.
Yeah, so no chimp. But Planet of the Apes came out, the original film, and they had a lot of behind-the-scenes footage on how they did the prosthetics, how they turned these people into chimpanzees, and that just enveloped me. And I started to go. We didn't have the internet back then. I started to go to the public library and look up books on theatrical makeup and prosthetics and how to do that. And so I turned the kitchen into a lab and started making molds on my face and doing sculptures and practicing that. So soon, and this is in a small town in Central California, so there's no real outlet for that. But you get known as the kid that does the weird stuff. Now, my brother then knew a guy. There's always some connection.
Yeah.
There's always somebody that knows somebody. That's your in. That's your initial in. And so he knew a guy who was working, doing special effects for a group called the Tubes. This is a group in San Francisco. They're very wacky, very wild, very theatrical stage show. So I met up with him, and we are of like minds, and so we started making crazy stuff for the Tubes. You know, the lead singer bashes his head into a television set and comes out with the CRT tube on his head. You know, we made something that he could do that, and crazy costumes and for photo shoots. You know, crazy makeup with razor blades and bolts and barbed wire during the height of the punk rock era, right? Once you start doing stuff for the music industry, you start to expand, again, your network, and you meet other people. And at that time, man, we started to work for KISS soon afterwards.
Wow.
Okay? Here I was, 17 years old, still in high school, and I'm working for KISS. And it's not only, it is saying yes, but it's also being, you could call it cockiness, you could having a lot of brass you-know-whats, but just confidence, really, in and a blinkered, straight ahead, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do what I want and go ahead, and not even thinking about the mistakes I could make. No second guessing. Oh, what if I screw it up? Just do it. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I continue to make mistakes because I still have that straight ahead feel. But that, you know, working for the rock bands, that got me a lot of very practical experience in being creative on short notice, on short budget. Then I went to film school, but by that time I was already working on music videos, and I started working on low budget slasher films like Slumber Party Massacre. And then you tend to build your reputation. You know, you're still the guy who knows how to do something crazy. So they come to you. You get people say, "Hey, who do you know who they could do this?" "Oh, talk to this guy because he did this crazy thing on this film." And then you end up working at a lab or a workplace where there are other like-minded, like-talented people, and you network from there. You hear on the grapevine that there's going to be another show starting, so you try to find out how that works. And that just goes on and on and on, and ad nauseum, and then you go, wow, what did I do with my life?
Fascinating. It's yeah, I think confidence is a big part of it, isn't it? And being able to plow through something and try your hardest. Persistence, I think, Craig. That's what you said, persistence.
Yeah.
Just keep going, not giving up. If you love it, if you dream it, you can do it, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Mariano, tell us about how you got your start. You have a fascinating background in Argentina.
Well, I have a crazy life as a background, yeah.
Yeah. Tell us about it.
It's interesting. Many of the things you guys have been saying apply to me as well. But one thing that probably is the most important part on my end is that I discovered when I was 20 that my interest was to be a storyteller of any kind, to tell stories. And that was discovered through a friend of mine that came once to a job that I have, a business that I had, interested in making me buy advertisement in his radio station. And when he was leaving out of that meeting, he was knowing me from high school. When he was leaving, he said, you know, what the hell, why I'm selling you anything? You need to come and do a radio show in our station. Of course I did.
You said yes.
Of
You
course
said yes.
No, at that, just instantly I said, oh yeah, I have the show ready. I didn't know what the hell I was talking about, but that's what I did. Of course I did the show, and my wild side made me let me calculate, but 7 months after, 8 months after, it wasn't enough for me, the show, having that radio show. I wanted to do something bigger than that.
Okay.
So 7 or 8 months after, I was having my own radio station.
Wow.
Very small, in-town radio station, you know, like in the old movies you see those independent stations,
Yeah.
you know, with a small broadcasting thing.
We have one
and-
upstairs right there.
Yeah, yeah. And that made me have it for 4 years. It was in a beach town. We built a 100 feet high tower to make an antenna.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, crazy things. But always with this interest, this wild powerful interest on telling stories or giving messages, you know, that drives any kind of thing in our business.
Passion.
Yeah.
Passion
Then
for
quickly
storytelling.
I was already, I put myself to study screenwriting and direction in Argentina. That was like just starting, because as you read before, for several years it was like almost prohibited. And started working in television. It was easier to get a job in television than in film, or to start making something in television. So I started as a host, as in radio as well, and immediately I was producing my own show like a year after. And several years later, always trying to achieve things that are crazy or difficult to achieve, I put together for an investor the first 24 hours TV network based only for a fashion industry. We had no money to do that, but we put it together somehow, and it was all of a sudden being watched by the whole country.
Wow.
And the budgets we were handling for that are ridiculous, but really ridiculous. We were doing the whole TV station with only $30,000 a month for everything. The host we had, the technology, the footage, everything.
Crazy.
Then it grew to the stars and was profitable and expensive as well, and everything went to a normal stage. But we started like that. In the same way we started the radio station, just with a tower, you know, and making a big effort because of our incredible will to tell stories. But inside of me, I kept this interest on telling deeper stories through film more than television or radio, as I was doing. So after being quite successful in Argentina with these things that I wanted to do, my family and I, or my wife and I, decided that we rather try something bigger and come to US for continuing doing business with television and growing than to film. We were having already 3 kids, and one other was coming. But we made the shift, we made the change. So we came here, I started doing shows for networks that I was already related to, somehow from Argentina to here. And we arrived on, it's crazy to say because it shows the will you have to have for you to succeed in this business. It's not only being lucky. Some people it's just lucky, but some others need to make huge and crazy efforts. So we moved in US into US was August 2001. I was already doing business with networks, Latin American networks that were having their offices in Miami. And it was easy to me to continue what I was doing in Argentina, flying all the time to see them here. It was easier to come move into US, to Miami that I loved back then. And I was setting up my office to start doing business with them. Think of the month that I said, or the date that I said, August 2001. Once the office was opened, a few days after, the towers came down. And the Latin American companies moved their offices to South America, away from US.
Right after you moved there.
So we were saying, what the hell? What are we going to do now? The options were going back to Argentina or trusting in my will to tell stories in the US, which of course I did. Now I'm here. To do new innovations, a company hired me a Spaniard company hired me to try opening a Hispanic division, a Hispanic production company for Telemundo, Univision, and so on, in California instead of Miami. Miami was way cheaper to produce there, a way of unions and things, and blah, 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 and California was impossible. It was a completely impossible dream for an Hispanic network to make shows here. So I spent a year finding out all the details for us to be able to do so. How to build a production company saving money from everywhere for us to be able to do some shows here instead of in Miami, especially because we have 8 million Hispanics living in California and only 2 million in Miami. And of course we did it. We did like 2,400 shows
Wow. You're busy.
where it was impossible to be done. Always with the interest of now bringing this storytelling to a new and bigger point. And then one day I decided to open my own production company in California, as I was always dreaming, and start trying to make films as I was willing to do. And I used crazy opportunities that were happening on the market. That was in 2008 when the whole country was falling apart economically, but the music industry was going through a crazy crisis because
Because
the
of the
technology change. So Sony Music Latin was a minute about closing doors, disappearing forever. Sony Music, the Latin version, the Hispanic version. And they were looking out for new formulas for doing business, so we put together a formula to start making films with their musicians. Because every musician has an actor inside, If they go up on stage and they sing and they make you feel things while they're singing, they can perform. So we started writing and creating a way to make films with them in a very short term of time with the low budget that the music industry was having to invest back then. And we made it to make movies based on music songs performed by these singers.
Smart.
Yeah. The toughest part was not only their schedules, because they were making money only of playing music on stage every weekend. So they couldn't have like a month for shooting away from playing music because they needed to feed their families from playing music. So we needed to figure out a way to make it very fast with no money and blah, blah, blah.
And you did
So
it.
we decided to get the songs and write the scripts, and this is important for all of you, to write the scripts based on what we had.
We do that in classes here.
Okay.
We're like, we have this amount of time, we have this amount of resources. We're not going to be doing a huge big budget Avatar type as a student film, so they understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we figured that we can tell the same drama in 100 locations or only one. It depends on how you write that, how you put that in paper and lead your team to work on that. We didn't do it in one day, but we did a lot of successful films that worked in the Hispanic networks then after, that were produced in only 6 days. 90-minute films.
90-minute film, 6 days. Who can do
produced
that?
in only 6 days.
A couple. Look at those are the confident
Good.
ones.
All right.
Those are the ones who are saying yes.
Good. So then I moved on with that thing, and now, as you said, I'm doing this for not Geo for Sony Pictures, not this 6 minutes, this 6 days shooting movies, but nice drama movies in Spanish for bigger networks, better budgets, and so on.
Fantastic.
it.
What a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Lauren, how did you get your start?
Well, funny enough, when I first started out, I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon. Some of you guys in here know the story, but I guess kind of piggybacking a little bit on Rick because he was doing business before Rick down at the end. But yeah, I started off as going to medical school, but I was always a writer. So I started writing at a really early age, and in 8th grade, I wrote a book, and my dad was like, "Great, send it to all the publishers that are in the front of all the books that you read." And I'm like, "Great." So I sent them out like 25 letters, and they all came back, and they weren't even open. They were like, "We can't read this. It's unsolicited." What does that mean?
So you learned a lesson right away.
Or
Wow.
so early. And they're like, "You have to get through like 100 rejections." I'm like, "I'm already 25 and I'm only 13. Excellent." So I had a good head start. So did that, and then I got to high school and actually started acting. I got recruited to by an acting company, so I started acting actually in the 11th grade. But I was an athlete, so I was kind of doing a lot. But what I noticed is that there wasn't a lot of representation that looked like me on screen. And since I was always a writer, I felt more of an onus to write and create stories and create roles. So I started writing. My uncle was a screenwriter in the business at the time, worked with the Wayans brothers. He did, like a lot of the big movies. He was on Living Color at the time. Then he did White Chicks and Scary Movie and these kinds of things. And so it kind of was a natural progression. And he sent me a bunch of scripts and magazines and said, "Write me a script." I was in the 11th grade. I read all this stuff, and I wrote a script. So I was like, wow, this feels like what I should be doing. So, but I was still on the path to go to medical school. That was like since the 9th grade. And I was like, well, I'll just pay my way through medical school writing screenplays because that sounds totally logical. And so, yeah, I was on that path. And then I got to college, and I had decided I was going to give up sports. I got recruited by the coach to play. Even though I didn't want to do it, I ended up playing. And my microbiology major suffered tremendously because 60 hours a week playing basketball, you just can't do science. And I was like, I don't get C's, so we're changing majors, so I have to finish basketball. So I changed majors, and I took my first liberal arts class. It was a film class, and in that class, my teacher just said, "Wow, you have great instincts. Have you thought about doing this for a career?" And I thought, like, wow, that sounds like the most normal thing like I've ever heard. And I was kind of freaking out because I just knew my parents were going to be terrified when I said I was changing my major. And they said, "Well, we were wondering how long it was going to take for you to change." And I'm thinking, I could have saved so much heartache if you guys had told me that you already knew I was supposed to be doing this like a long time ago. So that's
Sometimes we need to figure those things out on our own.
Oh, yes.
We don't want our parents to tell
That's
us.
well, yes, I know. Now hindsight, sure, but last little time. But anyway, so that's how that happened. And so my brother came down here to go to Cal State Northridge to play football, and he said, "You should come down here and go to film school." And so I got into it, and lesson learned though. They tried to recruit me for basketball. I said, "I am not playing." So I did not play basketball. I just focused on film, and I got through the program in 2 years. My second year when I was there, I won the Abraham Polanski Screenwriting Award. And so that was kind of a nice affirmation as well, that my writing was something to really consider. And so I got my first internship. Actually, this is kind of leading into my first job, which I talked to these students, my students here. I teach at Fullerton as well, and we do like a whole thing on internship letter writing and resume writing and things like that while you're in college. So for me, my professors just really extended their hand and offered me a lot of their resources, and I ended up getting an internship at Sony Pictures. And so I worked in the Movie of the Week department and learned a lot about pitching. They let me pitch a couple things. I got to write coverage. I got to do a lot of really neat things there and interact with a lot of producers that were making movies at the time. And after I finished that internship, I got right out, and funny enough, my first official paying job came from my first film teacher, who was back in Santa Maria, who asked me, "Have you ever considered doing film as a career?" He's the person, and he goes, "Well, one of my former students is Winifred Hervey. She's the executive producer of a show called The Steve Harvey Show. She used to produce The Cosby Show, and then she went to The Steve Harvey Show." And so he goes, "I'm going to connect you with her." So she gave me my first job, and just because of the connection of the teacher that we had in common from back home. And so I worked on that show as a PA, production and writing, and and, I ran scripts to all the executives, late at night, so they could get the notes by the next day and all that kind of stuff. And that's how I got my start. But after that, I started substitute teaching so I could make money for a feature that I was going to write and direct. And I stumbled into teaching because, apparently I got like a long-term position, and I was, again, playing pickup basketball with the high school boys. And they're like, would you like it? We need a coach for the basketball team. And I was like, ooh, a real job. Like, I feel like an adult now. Maybe I should just take this for a little while, like just for a little while. 15 years later, I was like, what am I still doing? And so it became this thing of me trying to, pursue my film career while teaching full time. And so that's been my story for the last 17 years, actually, just producing in the summers and doing whatever. But I ended up, because of that, taking the more independent route, which was producing my own projects. And so going back to the whole thing about writing and producing with what you have to work with, I was teaching film classes, and we didn't have any resources, like no cameras, nothing. So I was like, bring your phones, bring your iPods, bring whatever you have that has a camera on it, and we'll make movies. And so kind of taking that same model, I thought, it's how am I going to get this into the studios when I can't even take pitch meetings during the week when I'm working all the time? So I just got a bunch of colleagues together that I had kind of acquired over the years, and showed them the script. We had table reads. They loved the stuff. I was able to get really high-end people to produce my projects just because they love the projects, and they're like, we love working on good stories. And so that's how I was able to produce my first few projects. And yeah, that's kind of how it went. And so from there, I pretty much started directing just so that I could get my writing out there. And so it was kind of like, well, I have the script, I want to see it done. How do I get it done? And so I kind of took the more independent route. And a lot of times doubting if that was the right thing to do, because you're trying to pull your own weight and all the other weight, and it's just it seems like a tedious process that does take a lot longer in some ways, but in another way it's great because you get to learn so much about all the different facets of the process. And so anyway, that's how I got here. And so now, finally, 18 years later, I'm back to the TV or to the writing side of it, and I'm actually getting paid to write features and write TV shows and stuff like that at the same time while I also get to teach. Yes.
Persistence.
Absolutely.
Persistence, saying yes, not giving up.
Yep.
Keeping after your dream, networking. These all
Yeah.
seem like themes, right, guys?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great stories. I'm going to skip ahead to a couple questions. What are some qualities you think you would look for in potential candidates seeking employment with you? Like, what is something you look for when you're hiring something? Maybe we could just kind of go quick, like 5 characteristics that you're probably looking for somebody when you're hiring.
Well, you got to want to be there. I don't know if that's on you. It is on you, but it has to show to to me as well.
So they can't be on their phones. They can't be off doing something else. They have to want to try and, hey, what else can I do? What else can I do?
Yeah, you can't be on your phone on a production, at least in the field that I'm in, and on a set. You really having a phone out. There's really no place for that. It's kind of bad form, for one, and the other one is that it just shows that you're not engaged in the process. And while everyone has their kind of like different tasks, most productions are a collaborative process, on the scale that we all seem to work on. And you're there, you're being paid by the hour, and you're supposed to be attentive and giving 100% to what you're doing. So that, if you're not, that's observed. And you may not be asked back for the next job or the next day if you show that you're not into what is taking place, because everyone has to do their job when it's required, and you can't be they can't be hunting you down because you're missing or something like that. So be there, be on time, be early. It's better than being late. And there's nothing like that. There's a saying, like, you get one black eye, or if you do something wrong, if you're like late for work one day, it takes like 5 good guys to make up for that. 5 attaboys. So if you got to be at a certain place at a certain time, be there on time or early, but don't be late because everyone else can't start doing their jobs unless everyone's there. Not literally, but it puts more workload on the other people
Yeah.
if you're not there. And
So
nobody
be
likes that.
attentive. Don't be
Yeah.
late. What do they say? If you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. Is that what it
Yeah.
is? Some saying like that? Half an hour early.
Yeah.
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 Especially in LA, there's so much traffic. You never know if
Yeah.
there's going to be an accident, so you want to plan to be
And
there
you
early.
cannot use that as an excuse.
No,
That
you
is
can't.
not as an excuse. That's a fact of life.
Yeah.
Traffic is brutal, but yeah,
Yeah, plan for it.
in
Worst case scenario, you make it happen.
in this
Yep.
business, you just have to be there. Yeah.
So be there physically and be there mentally.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Great. What are you looking for, Craig?
I think what I've been working on a project in Atlanta, so we get a lot of Atlanta, the Georgia Film Commission there gives us interns, and they're promoting that industry really big there, bigger than any other city that I've been into. So they do give you interns, and you know, when I have these guys come in, guys or girls or whatever, they you know, it's interesting to see, you know, can you get there on time? There's no traffic there, so there's no reason to be late. I'm there 2 hours early every day.
2 hours.
I start my job 2 hours earlier than most everybody
Wow.
there. In any case, that's just me.
Dedication. That's why
Right.
you get hired again.
The thing is when I get these interns, I see them, and you know, some of them, you know, they do the phone thing, and right away I'll hit them up. I'll just say you can't have your phone out, and they couldn't have their phone because of the movies we were shooting. It wasn't allowed. There were no pictures to be taken. There was no reason. It was all a very kind of a top secret kind of project. But in any case, the guys that really pestered me the most were the guys that I'd be really interested. They'd ask questions like, "What is this piece of equipment? What does this do? What is," you know? And I'm just like, "Please, you know, you're gonna drive me crazy." But that's the guy that's gonna take my job in 10 years. He'll be a key gripper. He'll be the best boy, because he's really interested. He's annoying, but it's a good thing. So and I pass that along, because a lot of times I don't have time to answer all the questions. You know, I go, "Okay, take care of this guy. Show him what this stuff's all about. Show him the dolly. Show him whatever it is. You know, explain CGI to him or any of that sort of thing." And they're all really interested. But the guy that's asking the questions, that's the guy that you keep your eye on, and that's the guy you'll keep. A lot of them, though, they're a little bit quiet. You know, personality is a big thing. You know, if they can integrate into my crew, and we're not all happy. You know, some of us are old and grouchy, and some of us are, you know, they're younger and they're more fun to be around or whatever. So if they integrate into my group, then they're more than welcome. But they got to work. They got to do their bit. They're not just here to be observers. And as an internship in Georgia, an intern was just to observe, and I go to the producers and I'd say, "Listen, you can't bring these guys in and expect them to stand there and watch us do things."
Yeah, that's a little odd.
It's just a little bit not the way it should work. They should be part of it. And they go, "Well, there's liability if they get hurt." And I go, "Well, okay, great." So, but anyway, I put them to work. The menialist jobs, you know, carrying a sandbag or taking a ladder out, or, you know, loading the truck when we move to a different location, or whatever it is, they got part of it. And through all those little things, they learn the equipment. Eventually, they all know, "Hey, go grab that sandbag." And they go, "Well, what's a sandbag?" But now they know what they are, because they're 50 pounds and you never forget it. The thing is, it's all that you have to do to integrate a person into you. You can see that, you know, some of them are a little bit, you know, skeptical. You know, maybe they're not going to be a grip. Maybe they're going to be the sound guy. And they're over there, and they might go over and they talk to the sound guy. Well, then you go up to them and go, "Listen, this probably isn't for you, what you want to do, but you're seen to be interested in sound, so maybe we can get you an intern." So you're trying to maneuver people through to what they're really interested in. You know, you can't force somebody to be a grip or whatever, but, you know, a lot of them are that interested to do it. And there's also so many aspects of so many different jobs that there's something there for everybody, really. So.
And that's the great thing about interning, too, is
Yeah.
they get to be exposed to all those different positions.
And I had these guys. It was interesting because I had these guys, a couple of guys. One guy just didn't seem like he was going to get it, you know. He wasn't going to be, I don't know what he was going to be. He was confusing. But as it turned out, he turned out to be the guy I'd hire because he was a runner. He was the guy that really, hey, go get me that. And he'd shoot over there and get it and bring it back, you know.
Yeah.
It's like a trained dog, but he was really good at doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And me being older, you know, I like guys like that. I like guys that it's going to come, you know, I'm not going to pick that up. You get it. You go, you know, and I can
Yeah.
have these guys jamming all over the place, and they're learning and they're doing great. It's just the thing is, it's one thing because the Atlanta Film Commission, they're really big. It's a real big industry there. It's bigger, film-wise, motion pictures, major motion pictures are being made there more than here in Hollywood. Hollywood's got TV, they've got the features. And they're, you know, and they've got the work, they got the ethic, they've got the they're getting the training. We're actually slitting our own throats by going there and showing them all this stuff, but we're asked to come there. I don't go there because, you know, somebody's, you know, asked me to come. You got to come and do the show with us. So I get to go. I can't bring my whole crew because there's incentives, and that's a whole nother world that you'll think about when you start in this industry because of where the industry's headed. It's not going to all be here. You're going to have to think about moving to Atlanta or moving to New Orleans or wherever all these places that it's all changing. It's a whole new evolution of filmmaking. Where it's done, how it's done. We were talking about lights. It's amazing, and you should get into it.
Yeah, true.
Thank you.
So what am I looking for when I hire somebody?
Yeah.
Okay. When I know what kind of at our shop, at the character shop, when I know what kind of person I need, I start calling them. They may have sent me their resume, but for us, because we work in a shop environment where it's hands-on fabrication, creating something, doing what you're told, a resume doesn't really reflect how you operate in that environment. But if I talk to a person on the phone, I ask them where else have they worked, what kind of skills they have, and they tell me. Number one, if they're not a good communicator, I stop listening. It's not going to go any further. If they don't listen to me, if they're blah, 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 forget it. It's not going to work out. If I ask them what rate do they want, and they tell me, and then there's a golden comma, but it's negotiable. Thank you. You're on my A list. If I've never met you before, if you've never worked for me before, you may say you want this amount of money, but you may not fit in our budget, or you really might not have the skills for our particular job that I can afford to pay you that. And every single job has a different budget. So having practice saying, but it's negotiable.
That's important.
You will be able to land a job that somebody would have said no to you previously. And then if you get that job, don't have your phone, don't have your hands in your pocket, bring your tools. If you're working in a shop, hand tools. If you're working on a set, grip and electric tools, tool bag, a tool belt. Be self-sufficient so that you don't have to ask for someone else to give you something so you can do your job. And then I disagree with you on the asking questions. I think if you get on set, now it's not an internship, but if you're actually working, if you're on set, be quiet and observe. I made a couple mistakes when the director asked me something that my supervisor had told me not to divulge. But the director is like the head guy. So I answered him, and boy, did everybody get in trouble. I didn't really get in trouble because, you know, I was answering the director.
Yeah.
So I made a little motto for myself that I still try to remember, mum's the word. If you give out your input when it's not asked or desired, you're kind of disrupting the creative flow of the people who are running things.
I think that's a hard thing for them to learn at the student level too, because they're all peers. So when they're working on a project with the director, and they're the sound person, on a professional set, they just can't go up to the director and say, hey, I think you should do this.
Right.
But on a film set, they can. So that is one of
Yes.
the soft skills that we can't really teach.
Yeah.
But it's something that they could learn as when they go out and do internships.
Maybe think about it as respecting your place in a production, and respecting the different departments and the heads of those departments. It's all very collaborative, but you're only one little piece of the puzzle, and you might have a great idea for your project, but this is not your project. You're lucky that you're working on it.
Right.
Yeah. It is difficult to learn.
It's like a military pecking order almost.
Yeah, there's a lot of respect for each department,
Right.
and knowing your place and running. I agree with you on running. I'm a big fan of running. I still run.
There's a
I
job
don't pick
called
up
a runner.
anything that weighs
A
over
production
5
assistant
pounds.
job is also called a runner,
I
where
bet-
somebody
yeah.
runs and gets you stuff.
And that's one of the best ways to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Rick.
What do I look for in someone who is that I might want to hire?
Yeah.
That they are talented. They are in competition with a local talent pool who is very talented. It's very deep, this talent pool. So you'd better be good at what you do. And if you're not, be honest about it. Say what you can do, say what you can't do. You still may fit in, okay? But I expect you to be talented at what you do, to be quick at what you do. I hope to hire people that are bright and will pick up stuff. If they don't know it, they'll pick it up quickly. And who work quickly. I like people who are funny, okay?
That's honest. It's true, right?
Because that helps bring up the level of morale in the shop, right? But on the other hand, don't talk so much where you talk with your hands all the time, because I say, hey, if I, could you work with one hand maybe, while you're talking? So if it's too talky, then I'll notice that. The phone thing, yeah. What? And you're gone. We have deadlines. Every job that comes in is a different project, and I might need different specialties. And the people that I keep asking back are the people that have a good spectrum of talents and skills, who do bring their tools, the tools that they need to do the job, and who act professionally.
Thank you. Excellent. Mariano?
From my background, when you're down when you learn in countries like my original country, you need to learn everything. I mean, being specialized as we are in U.S., that I'm glad now, it is not common. You normally need to learn everything. You know you learn how to use a camera, how to do lighting, how to write, how to do everything, because it is like necessary and normal there. Sometimes it happened to me in the past that somebody didn't like that I knew several things because of I needed to learn that in the past. Sometimes you look like, what the hell? What you think you know a lot? And that makes me that every time I hire somebody, I expect this person to have the normal skills that I need this person to have. If it's in lighting, in camera, and whatever it is, to be like proficient, that's basic. I give that almost as granted. If I see a resume or whatever, somebody tells me what they do, I with 2 or 3 questions, I know if this person knows camera or not.
You
That's
asked
it.
3 questions?
Yeah,
What
I
3
may ask a few
questions do you ask?
questions, a few tricky questions
Yeah.
to understand if he knows what a focus is, how to drive a focus. But you know that with 2 or 3 questions, you know that.
Yeah.
I don't trust in reels. When somebody brings a reel, for me to see what they did, I say, whatever. I ask my questions. Because not with 2 or 3 questions, you know if this person knows how to use a spot. That's it.
Yeah.
Not because what he shows in a reel. Because reels, he could be doing whatever in that reel, or it could be someone else's reel, and you don't never know.
Right. That's a good
Okay,
point.
but with 2 or 3 questions, you know. Once I know that thing, I care about passion.
Passion. I hear
That's-
that word so much.
That's my thing. If
So
I don't see
much.
they're committed for what we are going to do, I don't like that person. And that's also something that I can sense in the eyes or in 2 actions. In a meeting, you know that immediately. You know if this person will be like helping the other guy or not paying attention. If your crew is passionate in a set, when the director says action, nobody talks because they're passionate about what is ongoing there. So everybody's silent. If you in a shot, somebody has to say silence, the person that is talking is not passionate. So passion is not about being loud.
Right.
It's about love what you do. It's about being committed to what you're doing, putting everything you have. As a as an everything, producing director, whatever, everything. I've done,
Multi-hyphenate.
when I'm in a set, I don't mind helping somebody with cable, somebody with
Yeah.
a camera, somebody an actor with setting up his dresses. I mean, I don't mind, and I like to help in everything I can, and I like people doing so. Although I understand the departments and the divisions of things, you know, I understand all that. But to me, people needs to be committed to this project that we are all doing. That's
Committed.
very important.
Passion.
Yeah, that's very important.
Persistence.
That's very important.
Focus is probably another word we
Yeah,
could add
indeed,
to that.
indeed. For example, in the company that I set up for the Spaniard people here like a few years ago, one of the challenges was, I mean, how to make people to be paid fairly and invest the right amount of time for what we wanted to do, blah, blah, blah. So I set the company up in a way that they had a lot of freedom for them to achieve our objectives and not necessarily fulfill the right amount of hours. You understand?
Yeah. So you're
If
trusting
somebody was
them to
having
get
a problem,
job done.
I would let him work from home, but you just help us to achieve the objective. So this is a way of, of work that I have. I don't need people to be like structured and, measured. No, I want them to put everything they have for what we agreed to do together. That's it. If they do that, I'm happy.
For sure.
I don't know if you need any other detail.
No, I love it. Passion, commitment. Those are important words. If people are just doing it because they're not into it, then it's going to show. I think everybody kind of has
No,
touched on
of course,
that.
we all work for money, and they need to be fairly paid, fairly treated,
Yeah.
fairly everything.
I heard somebody say
Right.
once they want to hire somebody who is thinking about their work as they're driving home, like thinking about what they're going to be doing the next
Oh,
day,
yeah.
thinking about solutions for a problem as they're or in the shower. Like that's passion is when you're always thinking about what's the next step, what can I do for the next thing, not just when you're paid to do it
Yeah.
and you just turn it off when you get in the car and drive
You know,
home.
sometimes when you direct, you want everything the way you want and blah blah blah, a lot of things.
Yeah.
But in my cruise, I'm so happy when somebody that is like an assistant doing something alternative that is not even important comes to me and say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I've seen that thing. Would you like to do?" Wow, great idea, and I go for it immediately. Some crews are like very divisive. You don't talk about this because this person does that and blah blah blah. I suffer when I see that. I like people collaborating, talking, helping, That's very important to me.
Awesome. Lauren, what are you
Yeah.
looking for? What are a couple characteristics you want in an employee?
Willing to learn, easy to adjust to whatever the different
Flexibility
conditions.
is
You got to
important
be
in our
flexible.
industry,
It's like
yeah.
especially like producing a lot of projects as well. I'd much rather have a crew of people who may not have every single box checked, but they're willing to learn and fill in a gap somewhere, than people who may check all the boxes but aren't team players, because that's like really hard to work with. So
player, yeah.
so I think those are the big things, and also people who think outside the box. So if you're able to bring your life experience into the place and make that work for a project, that's amazing. I have like a workflow guy that I use. He's one of my best friends, and he helps me produce. But he's into pipeline and all that kind of stuff. But when we had a steady Steadicam situation, and our guy had a family death and wasn't able to make the shoot the day of the shoot, and he was like, I go, I guess we're just gonna scrap the Steadicam. He goes, no, give me 3 hours. He's like, I'm gonna make us a Steadicam. I know if I just leverage, if I get some he made a Steadicam for us, and I'm like, okay, I did not expect that, right? So that kind of stuff is awesome.
Exceeding
Love that.
expectations.
Think outside the box, yeah.
Resourceful.
Yeah, being resourceful, yeah.
And you know, I hadn't heard anybody say, you have to know this camera or you have to know this software to get a job. I didn't hear anyone discuss anything like that.
That changes so
It
fast
changes.
nowadays.
Well, I think what we kind of pointed out in our own ways, what was important to us, is kind of a fundamental thing. And, you know, I was just thinking, listening to the others, that for you guys out there, there's much more to learn. And as Martina was saying, like if you're specializing in something, whether it's lighting in my case, or if you're a cinematographer, or you're going to be an editor, those are all things that come after this kind of like point of departure that you might take after you leave Moore Park here. And those things are all out there to learn, even more so, even easier now than, say, in my time when there wasn't the internet and YouTube videos and just so much information to just do on your own. And you can learn a lot in class, or whatever classes you're taking. But in my example, I didn't have to get a bachelor's degree in film and television to do my job. I could have just, you know, been persistent, tried to meet some people that were in the field that I wanted to get into, and nag them, or just been persistent, and they would have realized, like, this guy's serious about what he wants to do. I'm going to help him out. And so once you get out of here, you get an internship, hopefully, or something, you know, your friend lets you know of an opportunity, and you say yes, you can get, you can do all that learning and specializing later on. And you might find that you want to be an editor, and later on you want to do something else entirely. I've seen that change, and if I can just kind of hog some more time here, I know of a guy who was working on the TV shows that I work on recently. He's gotten 2 master's degrees over 15 years while he was working as a boom operator on sitcoms. And this guy is approaching retirement age now, and you know, he just found more time in his full-time job to get 2 master's
That's
degrees
crazy.
while that was going on. So
What are his master's degrees in?
I don't know, but he's
Molecular biology?
He's an interesting guy, and it's very impressive. But I never thought of doing that, because when I'm on the set, it just seems like it takes all my time, you know, and you know, the hours can be really long, and I don't know when I would have the time to do that. He found a way to do that.
Obviously.
Online
Maybe
classes or something
sleeping.
like that.
He doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
Like 2 hours a night of sleep.
Sounds like boom operator is a pretty
Sounds like-
easy job.
Yeah. I
Hint, hint.
Yeah. That kind of brings up another question I wanted to ask, which is, do you think their associate's degrees are sufficient to be successful in the industry, or do you think they need to transfer to get a bachelor's degree or a master's degree to be successful in the industry?
Well, we were talking about that before this panel, and we all had a variety of opinions on that. I think it's helpful to get in, because when you're looking for that company who doesn't know who you are, they see that you've accomplished something towards that, and that you
know how to complete something.
Yes, that, and as well as you've shown an interest in it, and it's you know, you put in the time and the effort to do that, so that you can be taken a little bit more seriously than just somebody who might present a resume that says, you know, I had 2.5 years at Starbucks and a 1.5 years at a gas station, and yeah, now I want to be a director. So, you know,
It shows that you have some
Yeah.
passion, some persistence.
yeah, you're actually working towards that.
Yeah,
And
it's a goal.
That definitely shows people that you're.
I would agree with that also.
So associate's degree is okay, or bachelor's? if you have an ass-
Either or,
yeah.
whatever, however far you want to pursue it. But I think that just to finish a project and complete it, that's the thing that people look for.
Yeah.
You know, you're willing to go the distance to complete something.
Yeah, I actually worked for a production company that told me they never hire anyone unless they have a bachelor's degree, because that shows them that they completed something. So they wouldn't even look at any applicants unless they had a bachelor's degree. So I think it might depend on the company too. But Deborah?
I would say I would vote for bachelor's degree, because if you spend your time in college learning, it's a very safe place to learn and to make all those mistakes that you're going to make.
That's a good point.
You're not a professional yet. You'll be able to learn about cinematography and lighting and directing. I originally wanted to be an actress, and then I changed in college and I wanted to be a director. And then when I saw how much work that was, I'm like, no, I'll be an editor, which is, to me, better. I'm better suited towards that, and I feel like I had more control, a lot of control over the finished thing as an editor, almost as much as a director, because you're really forming it. But if you go to college, yes, you will have shown that you completed something, that you're committed enough to something to finish it, and then you will have the safe space to learn and then to mature and be ready.
And
more ready.
discover what you love.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point that you made, because they get the opportunity to be all the different, we don't have a giant crew, so we don't have the position of grip generally.
Yeah.
But they know, at least they get an idea of what editing's like and what lighting is like, and they can decide what they love.
I mean, and they can work in theater too, and then you get an idea of sort of what a grip electrician work is like. Do you
Yes.
like moving sets? Do you like lugging cables? Do you like rigging things? Do you like going up high? Or is your mind working to organize everything behind the scenes? Or are you a writer? Or do you want to bring people together and assign them things? You'll
Yeah.
find that, hopefully, you'll find that out.
So lots of advantages to going and getting that 4-year degree.
I think so.
Do you agree?
I do. I mean, I've got my bachelor's degree. I went to Loyola Marymount as well. That's where we all met. The people, honestly,
Loyola has a good program, excuse me. I mean, it's quite well-renowned,
It's
and they have a
really
good
good.
master's program too, right?
yeah.
They call it Silicon Beach now? That area?
Probably.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see on social media, they have a lot of programs where they have like giant directors, like Guillermo del Toro, somebody will come and speak there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I had to decide to go to film school, there were really 3 to choose from on the West Coast: UCLA, USC, Loyola, and they all had good reputations. USC probably the highest, but I went to UCLA. Too big. I thought I'm going to be too small of a fish in a big pond. USC, maybe, but this is expensive. Loyola, I was early for my interview, so I started heading west, and then I was at the beach. So I jumped in the beach, and I said, "This is the film school I want to go to." But it was the right size. And if you look at Loyola alumni, they are working in the industry.
And that's important, the alumni, because we talk about networking, right?
Yes.
And to have a strong alumni organization that everybody can help each other out with is an important element in a film school.
Yeah. Great school all around. Great campus. And again, so I got my bachelor's degree there. For most of the people I hire, it's very talented, but it's blue collar work. It's sculpting, it's mold making, it's crafts. Now, maybe sometimes in the mechanical design, you've got to know how to work in certain software. And if you learn that in college and in an engineering course, that's great. So mine's a little more specialized, though. So it's not so necessary that you've got. Well, I shouldn't say that. The full bachelor's degree, but it certainly helps. It means that you've gone through. If you've gone through a film course in college, you have made a film or worked on a film, and you are familiar with all of the different departments and all of the different things that you have to do, and that is a good thing to know.
Great. Do you agree?
Yeah, I say that I believe that education is very important, very important. And I've been hands-on before education, and then I started educating myself in this business and so on. So I'm like the opposite. But we have the illusion that, or some people have as the illusion of working earlier makes you go faster in your career, which is, to me, a mistake. Because your career will last 30 years and your studies will last 2, 4, 6 years. So within that context, you rather start studying as fast as you can, and in both ways. I mean, as early and as fast, okay? But for you to have studies and then use those studies for the rest of your career. What you learn technically at school is very important because it speeds up what you're gonna learn if you go straight to work. You may think that you're going faster, but you are not going faster. At school, they teach you editing fast in a class that lasts like 4 months, and then you know the basics already. Then you can apply that to work and improve what you learned at school. And social-wise is very important as well. First of all, because you're meeting a lot of people that they will grow in your career with you. And
Yes.
second, because as we just said, companies are looking for, social-wise, for choosing you, are looking out to see your studies. What did you did before? Where do you achieve your degrees or whatever the degree is? It doesn't matter. I mean, if you cannot do 3 masters and you can only do an associate, well, that's the way you did it. But you have to try, at least for me, have to try as much as you can in your studies. And then move to work. You have the rest of your life to work after.
You have the rest of your life to work.
Yeah.
So true. So true.
Study
you
now,
have to.
work then.
And you have to.
Yeah, exactly. There's no
99% of
off for
us.
that.
Yeah.
So you rather study as much as you can and then use it for work.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Do you agree, Lauren?
I agree for the most, being in education for 20 years now. But I do think generally, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't regret at all going to school. Ironically enough, had I not gotten the master's, I wouldn't be teaching it now. So, but I think at the same time, I'm a huge advocate of going to school and getting the vocational practical application at the same time. So I think getting internships while you can, and I've had several of my students who come on.
Internships.
Yeah, and even if it's, even actual productions. I mean, I have students that are in this room right now who have worked with me on like paid projects, and that's pretty cool, that I've had in class, and to be able to do that, because I think it, it just helps to solidify the work that you're learning how to do. So I don't think that you should look at it like I have to wait 6 years before I can do any film work. It's like, no, I'm always encouraging them, even in little extra credit projects in class, like you can be working on this stuff as you go, applying it so that you can be more ready when it's time to go into the industry. And so, yeah, absolutely, I'm a huge advocate of education. And then on top of that, it allows you to do more. I didn't think that I would be teaching so long and starting so early with teaching, but everybody's path is different, and I wouldn't trade any of those experiences because they all kind of culminated to the person I am. And the project that went to Tribeca was ironically came out of my work as an educator. So it's just all your life experience is all your education. So you can't really just compartmentalize those things. So you can never, there's nothing bad comes out of getting an education except for financial aid loans. But other than that, like, you're winning. So yeah.
Great. I want to thank our amazing crew here, the FTVM program. We have our audio students and our radio students and our podcasting, and we have Tian right behind the camera there. We have Michael Grimes, who's our production specialist, who set up all of the camera gear, and Jason Beaton, our audio instructor, who set up all the audio gear. Thank them. Yay. And of course, thank you to all of our panelists for coming today. We really appreciate your time.